Right. Hi everyone. Case building time is up. We shall begin the round now. Before that, mic check for all the present teams. Opening government, are you there? Pendidikan Mandalika, are you there?
Yes, we are here. Sorry.
Okay. Opening opposition.
Hearing complete.
Closing government. Closing government, 10 November, are you guys there? Closing opposition.
We're here.
When it is there, closing government.
Here.
Okay. Judge roll call. Aziza, are you there?
Here.
And Grace, are you present?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Right. Hi everyone. Welcome to the Octofinal rounds of NUDC 2022. Congratulations all teams for breaking into the open category. My name is Kushaya. I will be your chair for this round. Paneling with me is going to be Aziza and Grace. Several disclaimers as per usual before we start. First, it's highly recommended for you to time your own speeches, although I will also time it and give time signals on the first, 6th, 7th minute and also on overtime. Second, please state your preferred preference of POI, be it via voice or via chat. If you don't say it, we're going to assume that it's via chat. Third, if you're comfortable with it, you can also state your preferred gender pronoun. Mine is nothing. You can call me anything you want. And lastly, since this is a live stream room, it's mandatory for everyone that is speaking to turn on their camera, except like if there's like some unfixable connection problem or something. Okay, with that said, let's begin the debate. To start the case of opening government, I call upon the Prime Minister. Here.
I'm sorry. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Can you turn on your camera, please?
Sorry, Kak, I cannot hear you.
Can you turn on your cam, please? Yeah, you already did.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, let me set my timer first. Okay, for gender pronouns, she, or her, and just a reminder, if you want to give POI, just unmute yourself because I will not see the chat box. Okay, I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, here panels. We are from opening government. We are talking first like how then in this motion we are talking about how then the U.S. interests give effect to to establish the trade agreements. How here we do know that U.S. interests have like an target to build the internal development in the country after like they are still in recovery, like they still recover from a pandemic, right? So there are like a lot of problems and issues that happen in US. So they just want to like strengthen internally. So it means that US interests just for like improve their internal development, and also the administration like Biden Biden do right now. But here OG like we want to like focus on how that the trade agreements will be like a potential mechanism to establish a stable condition, a stable situation in US itself. So it means that we do believe that by focus on trade agreements, it will make the condition in US stable time by time. So here we do believe that economic trade, we think that why US should focus or prioritize to establish trade agreements in East Asia like China, Hong Kong, and Japan, because we do believe that economic trade is more flexible. For example, like it's still like a less politic and like less intervention of ideology. For example, I will give an example like Indonesia and Israel, for example, even we have like different ideology, but we still have a good economy relation, and we still like do trade agreements with Israel because of its potential, right? Because of if you are talking about economic trade, it based on how potential the countries are, right? So it means that we do believe that it's easy to enter East Asia by using trade agreement, and I will explain it later. But here the question is why that building diplomatic ties is not going to be beneficial. It's not going to be good for US to like build the diplomatic ties and soft power in East Asia countries. First, because of we do like remember like the tension between US and China. We do believe that after war and after and during pandemic, there's like a cold war between US and China, and it's like it's hard if US still like want to building the diplomatic ties with China if you do know that China will not follow US well because of they have different ideology, they have a different target in the politic and diplomatic rights. So how then if US still like okay we will like choose another country in Asia, for example, but another countries like it's not a potential as a China, right? Because we do believe if like US will like choose another countries like just to build a diplomatic ties, it's just it will like was the power, the energy, and time. And at the end of the day, like US kind of focus on how then they can build the internal development in the country, right? Here we do believe that how then we do believe that diplomatic ties will fail at the end of the day. Why? Because first, if like if you are talking about East Asia's countries, it's also like talking about the strongest countries in East Asia, like China, right? So if China is strong and powerful, and like China is the countries like can influence the Asia's countries because of they have a strong ideology like communist, for example, and China has like power to intervention, like for example, like Hong Kong, even Taiwan and Macau, for example, because of they have like a strong ideology to intervention, influence another country in Asia. So it means that it looks hard for US like to build the diplomatic ties and soft power with countries in East Asia if we back to the background that US interest just to build and like make the condition stable in the country, right? So we do believe that the another argument, it's easy to enter East Asia and also by using the trade agreement. Like I said that economic trade is more flexible because of it's like more beneficial for US, but because of why? Firstly, East Asia like we do know that East Asia like it's good to make like a trade agreement. In economical aspect, we do believe that it will be beneficial because of there are so many profit that can be made and created can be created in the agreement. But actually, after getting a good like a real economical relation, for example, it will at the end of the day, it's still like there is a possibility for US to have diplomatic ties, right? We just want to focus on how then we can build and make the condition in US stable after recover from pandemic. And also here, because of back to my argument that US interest about this, like for example, like US will choose a potential country like have economy growing, for example. So it means that it will be better if US just choose to use trade agreements as opposed to building diplomatic ties, because we do believe that the tension, like for example, like North Korea, because we do believe that East Asia, like North Korea, for example, like they don't want to like have a relation, even like diplomatic ties with US because of they has diplomatic ties with Russia, for example. Even like okay, US can reach South Korea, for example, but it's hard like to like fully getting diplomatic ties with all of the countries in East Asia. And we do believe that it's still like not more benefit, not more beneficial for US by choosing to build the diplomatic ties and soft power with countries in East Asia itself. So it means that what OG focus on is how then we can stabilize and creating a stable economical condition. And after that, we can focus on another aspect. So we are from opening government. We are proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for that speech. To open the case of Op, I call upon Leader of Opposition. Here. Hello, are you there? Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, my gender pronoun is he or him. For POI, just through unmute yourself. I'm okay with verbal POI. If I get connection cut, please tell my teammates. Thank you. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I'm going to talk 3 things in my speech. Number 1, I'm going to characterize on the urgencies, and second, I'm going to tell you the trading with East Asia is very risky to USA and unable to compete with China. And lastly, how under our counterfactual it will be impacting to the better circumstances between both of sides, between the USA and between to the East Asia also. Before that, engagement to OG. Firstly, I think their characterization is only contingent on making diplomatic with China, right? This is not exclusive because on our side, we also can do to other countries. East Asia not only have China, there are South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and so on that we as USA will creating diplomatic ties with these kind of like countries that not only China and North Korea. Secondly, their goal is to fix and improve the condition on USA. This isn't exclusive. Why is that so? Because if they want because it's the prerequisite for them to actually improve the condition on economic in USA, like for example after post-pandemic. This why then USA want to like make to Europe or South Asia that have many other resources for palm oil and so on. Why then it is really exclusive for like USA to actually make a trade agreements more emphasized on East Asia, right? And lastly, what is missing under this side of the house is actually like the process analysis, right? Why then it will become the more beneficial for USA and almost for East Asia. 2 frames under opening opposition. Firstly, I think economic ties can also be happening anyway, right? For example, Samsung in South Korea trade to USA anyway, because economic should run, right? The difference here, we don't want to really focus on establishing it. Why? A, economic ties will still run and undergo under international trade organization between East Asia and USA anyway, right? And secondly, even if there will be problems of the regulation and policies, just fix it, right? Under right policies and discussing it in international way between this kind of countries, right? And lastly, I think government have to prove why US is the best and reliable actor talking on context of the economics, right? Because I think China is better, right? And I will explain that later. This also engage to OG. If you are going to be pragmatic on economics on China and North Korea, that we can do that anyway, right? If you're going to be like even if we have more heavily focused on establishing diplomatic ties with this kind of East Asia, right? Firstly, characterization or urgency. What we need the most and what the most urgent things in the status quo that are missing by OG. Firstly, for East Asia, they already got improvement, right? And improved on enough on economics that are supported mostly by China, right? And secondly, what they need right now is actually fixing the educations, politics, and so on. Why is that so? For the example, Taiwan right now is really in risk and damage situation of political stability because of the dominance of the superiority of the China. China is oppressing and the Taiwan to follow all the regulations did by China. This political stability affecting the whole, like the system of the economics, the system of the democracy, the system of the people in itself that are more oppressed by the China, right? The most urgent thing is not actually fixing the economies under this side of the house, right? Because we think this kind of like most vulnerable is really need to help from the USA, right? And secondly, we think for for USA it also this kind of USA is to counterbalance of the dominance of the China, right? To counter attack the China also means that it is going to be like the interest of this kind of two. Firstly, it's going to be interest of the USA, and secondly, it will going to be the interest of the East Asia. And secondly, trading with East Asia is very risky to USA and able to open. This is the very missing likelihood and mechanization on the OG, because they just going to tell you these trade agreements will be very beneficial without telling you about the process analysis, why is that going to be like leading to the better economic system under their side of the house. Structural reasons why under China this is going USA unable to compete with China in East Asia region, right? 5 reasons. Firstly, economically, China have more flexible and able most to looking for trends. Look at the status quo, for example, they're able to create TikTok that more of most impacted to the global. It means that or Tencent gaming companies for like these companies are exclusively created from China. It shows you that China is really over dominant on economic. It means the moment when when USA under your side of the house will going to be like intervening or like making an economic trade agreement and so on, it most likely people will either reject you because China is really better on economic, and second that this China already improved anyway, and secondly it is hard for US as well, right? Because China is being able to counterfeit your products as well. For example, the products coming to USA, coming to Taiwan, or like coming to North Korea, or like the China is eating with it itself. It means this kind of China people as the characteristics of the inside of China, they have the easier ways tactics to make this kind of product become fake or KW in Indonesia, for example, right? This way to make cheaper as opposed to US that going to get the profit, right? This kind of, it is hard for US as well because the likelihood for people to buy products is going to be cheaper. Even look like this product is really near close the quality itself. Thirdly, China has so much tax break because the government able to manipulate currency, cash flow, and easier for China to go smoother. Fourthly, geographic places. Logically easier logistic for this country of China to make it economic bonds and ties. And lastly, China have more way cheaper labors to make products inside of the industry itself. All of the 5 reasons means diplomatic ties under US is directly opposing and economic ties on US in their side of the house is very risky, harmful for USA also because they will be having a lost profit and so on. This kind of your likelihood and goals is really minimized and unlikely to be happen under your goals of the side. Lastly, counterfactual. Why does specifically soft diplomatic power is the inherent thing between their specific. We will to make diplomatic ties so far by political ties, technology collab, education, healthcare, like US aid, for example. We are also happy to make economic ties, but we want not to heavily prioritize it because economy still have to work anyway as the context that I will expand that before. What missing on is Asia? Firstly, education. That I would count, and secondly, technology, and lastly, politics. What US will have? Firstly, the moment when we have more diplomatic ties, it means that we can collaboration on political, like for example, like showing the how government work, for example, showing the hierarchy or structure of government work. It means we also have to sending the people like a political power, for example, people who understand more knowledge about this, like professional expertise and so on. Most advanced technologies have the collaboration to actually sharing the knowledge and experiences, for example. It means we also have most advanced technology under the side of the house to education. For example, the Ivy League will help to sending like the students, for example, inside of the people. It means it will impact all the more of East Asia to actually develop this kind of Argentine under the side of the house. That this technologies, education, technology, politics will also improve under our side because it will also be interest of the China's because we're able to counter China because right now this Asia not contingent in reliance on China. Based on these several reasons, we proud to oppose.
Thank you, Leader of Opposition, for that speech. To continue the case of opening government, I call upon the PM. Here.
Oh. All right. First of all, am I audible? Test?
Yes, you are.
All right. Before I'm going to start my speech, I would like to remind for the POI preference, just unmute yourself because I'm not going to see the chat box. So I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. All right. I think that opening, I was come up with the idea that, like, Southeast East Asia is not only like China, but also it has like it has Taiwan and every like small countries that they believe that are vulnerable, that they have to protect as United States, so that in order for you to have a building to have like to build ties. But I think that like they actually come up with the idea how actually Taiwan and any small countries are being affected, are being influenced by China. How actually they do have less power than China, and they are being influenced by China, and then they believe that they have to protect them. And then, but I think that even there was actually a moment when Taiwan, US tried to protect Taiwan and every small countries in Southeast. In South China Seas, which is actually they tried to help them, but at the end, like their help is actually useless, because somehow they cannot overpower. US cannot overpower the China's power, right? Because like let's see actually the characteristics of China's in East Asia. I think that the power of China in East Asia is actually big. So like all the countries are easily influenced by China, since like they do have like they have strong in terms of economics and politics, right? So we think that it is kind of hard if we are going to building a diplomatic ties with these countries, with small countries, since like it is kind of really impossible for US to building ties with China, because they do have like they are independent, so like they just like think that they can stand by their own. So it's like you cannot also like interpret all these small countries, because it's gonna be like a problem for them too when you try to interpret these countries, because since like we do have different ideology, different politics, right? So they also like come up with the idea actually that Korea, well, like America has actually buildings diplomatic style with Korea, which is like it doesn't mean when we are focusing on the trade agreements, it doesn't mean that we are going to like lose our building ties with South Korea, because like the building ties that we have already built will not going to lose, because it's still going. It will still be going, right? What we want as United States is that we're going to find ways. It's like we do have a lot of internal problems, such like our economics is actually it's recovery because of pandemics, for example, and as a Biden, like we really have to find a way. So in order for us to gain some interest, and then the only way for us is that by trade agreements with this South Asia. So there are two things that I'm going to discuss in my debate. So why building ties in Southeast Asia is actually not beneficial. So I think that I think that when you're going to like a building ties with East Asia, it means that there will be like trade war there, which is like China and US, right? And then it is actually really hard to interpret all these small countries such as Taiwan and Philippines and like that you have mentioned. So like it is gonna be hard because the trade war, because China is in terms of power and economics are very strong, right? And then second of all, like I think that by building ties is actually really harm for these vulnerable countries when you try to interpret them, and then there will be like a conflict between you and China, which is like it's going to be lead you to low economic status, right? And then second of all, why trade agreement is actually better. So first of all, it's actually when we do a trade agreement, it will be less political, no interference of ideology. So like when you talk about trade, it means that it's always based on merit, right? I mean, the more the merrier. So like it doesn't interfere your ideology and everything. Just like for example, like with Indonesia and Israel, even though they do have different ideology, but they still have like trade agreements like unilateral, right? So second of all, like easy is so that like as United States, it will be easy for us, like instead of just like building ties, which is like it's gonna be hard because since like we do have different ideology and then different politics, and then how actually these countries are being controlled by China, which is gonna be really hard to enter. I think that it is actually better to do a trade agreement, since like we do not have actually we don't have to we don't have to like think about ideology and politics, right? And then the transitions of trades, it will be not as hard as under the side of the house, right? And then China is actually, as we know, like China is very strong. So again and again, it's really hard to build. It's really hard to build the diplomatic ties with all these countries, right? And just like one example, like, back then, US actually tried to have Taiwan and Philippines in South China Sea, which is, it's end up that their help is actually useless. And then it really shows that as South China, as the United States, we can just, build, try to focus on building the diplomatic ties with these countries, right? As even though like you said that like America is also powerful, like we can actually defeat China, but the thing is like geographically we actually like far from America, which is it's gonna be hard. Like China with all these countries is actually close in terms of geographically. So like in terms of the possibility of attacking is actually bigger from China, which is it's really hard, and then it's really hard to attack the right. So with all these conclusions, which just means that as a Biden's or like as the presidents of the United States, we should like only find ways. So the only way that we think it's gonna be like very beneficial for us, that's going to help us, is a through it's through building trade, right? Which is like maybe like make trade with these countries. So which is like it is easy, right? So therefore, as opponent governments, we're proud to propose.
Thank you, Deepam, for that speech. To close the opening half, I call upon Gail. Oh, here.
Hi, I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay. PI through chat. Sorry, through unmute aja. Perfect General Pronoun, she or her. Okay. Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Two framings under one. We said the problem right now is not about economy, but instead it's a problem with education, for example, politics. And we say that under our side, we don't want US to fight a losing war because we think that the only way for us to be able to compete is only through diplomacy. Second, we think that when they saw that when the countries in East Asia see that you are able to compete in economic with China, so even if you focus on that, they are afraid to take the risk. So we say it is a better strategy under our side as to want this. But lastly, right, we say that under our side house, this is not a debate whether US where US is the actor, the only one who are going to get beneficial. This is a value judgment motion, how you're going to impact also the whole nation, for example, also about the East Asia. So we say that the burden on government on this debate is that to prove which is the vulnerable actor. We already prove to you that the vulnerable actor countries like Taiwan, Korea, for example, who are unable to have their own sovereignty. Therefore, we already have a free win over OG. Exactly because we prove to you that we are going to benefit this kind of East Asia country. Right? On OG, they lose because they only say that the only actor that they're going to say is US and China, which is already most prevalent actor in the motion. Responding to OG, one, they say that China has influence to interfere and US can operate. We said it's not true under 3 reasons. A, we say that China is doing their diplomacy, for example, based on their economy. They don't care about the democracy. They don't care about you like the things that you do in like your relation with other country, as long as you have their own economic benefit with you. But the most important thing is that comparatively on your side house, when you compete based on economy, that's when they will actually intervene to the relation between you and this kind of US. So we say this is unlikely for on your side house to be able to achieve that without the China's influence. But B, it's even harder for China to able to like retaliate towards US, right? Exactly because they have lower military power over US. That's why even if you try to intervene this in diplomatic diplomatic way, for example, they're less likely to want to do this against you. Their main intention for China is that to have this kind of power economically, right? Not because they do hegemony unlike in the US. But see, we said our government side of the house, we said they will lose the power as US, right? Because if you want to compete with China, this is going to not hard to achieve, right? This is like tariff war in Trump era. This is why when US try to want to say that they want to compete with China, for example, it's actually causing a very much harm. So if OG said that they want to focus on the economy, for example, but that is not likely to happen, and it's going to cause you a great loss on your side of the house. Exactly because China has no limitation when they do economic trades, so US cannot do this kind of trade exactly in this kind of era, for example. So we say it's okay to give economic to China, but at least you have this kind of soft power and a different approach in order to take this kind of East Asia to you, right? Secondly, they also say, for example, things like Taiwan Sea getting taken from China, for example, there are problems that is going to happen on our side of the house. They said that they're trying to fix this through economy. Hey, this is not true, right? We don't get how when you do economic, for example, you're more likely to do export and import, you're going to solve this kind of problem. But B, we said that exactly under our side of the house, this is the problem we're going to be solved, right? Exactly because when you enter through diplomatic ways, for example, you have this kind of ties within the country, therefore you are able, for example, for US to facilitate a mediation, for example, with China and Taiwan, or when Taiwan have their own sovereignty, exactly because our counterfactual is that we prove this kind of sovereignty that come from Taiwan. This is why we are able to solve this kind of problem under our side of the house, right? So we say that we take this point from OG, but even if CG is able to prove what is economically beneficial, that is actually still risky. Like there are 5 reasons why Sunny said this is going to be risky for the countries to take, because exactly because they're already economical contingent to China, they're unwilling to take it exactly because they feel that they're going to lose this kind of economic, they're going to lose all of their benefit on their side of the house. So that is better if you take another approach. This means that they are likely to take this kind of other benefit coming from US, for example, things like be able to improve their political or education. It's because, for example, they're able to get economic from China and also all of these other side things from US. So we said it's easier for us on our side as to have this kind of proposal and do check and balance, right? So coming to my extension, then why diplomatic ties is the only way to fix problems in Asia. On our side, counterfactual, we're able to do these things like, for example, diplomatic ties. We want to approve the sovereignty of Taiwan. We want to see them as a country like Hong Kong, for example, or we're able to integrate, do trades, for example, we do exchange in education, for example, like university, like Harvard or things like that, that is able to enter this country, right? We say that the problem with South Asia is not is because of their is the problem with the diplomacy. There are things like education, for example, that actually comes from China, right? This is like propaganda, for example. This is like them justifying Uyghur or what China has done in concentration camp, for example. The things that education is very heavily influenced by China. Looks like in Taiwan, for example, or in Hong Kong, where you're supposed to think that everything China do is the good thing. This is why, or for example, democracy or BLM is shitty thing. We say that in terms of education, it's beneficial for both sides under our side of the house. We have things like Harvard and exchange in order to do things like fix this thing in East Asia, because you're able to do check and balance what is actually the right thing to do. On government, they're relating these kind of things that not only economy but other things that is going to be dictated by China. That is harmful because this means that this other country, small country, for example, are not going to escape from the control of China, right? We say this cannot be fixed with economy, but can only be fixed only through diplomatic. We say that US want hegemony unlike economy in China, right? Therefore, on their side, there will no check and balance. But B, things like sovereignty, for example, exactly because there are countries like Taiwan or South Korea or North Korea, we say, for example, it is better for Taiwan and Korea from our side of the house when they are getting admitted as an actual country, so that they're able, for example, to run for an escape from by China, for example, they're able to do trades, for example, or to do other diplomatic ties with other countries, because they're no longer dictated by China, right? On comparative on their side, this is like Hong Kong, for example, where they are already improved their economy, but in the politics, for example, they're still controlled by CCP. On their side, we propose this kind of thing to this kind of East Asia country. Therefore, we're more likely to let them to take this kind of benefits to take this kind of benefit under our side of the house, not just letting them to be dictated, right? Framing here is that we say that for this kind of East Asia country, it's better for them to develop, not just focusing on the trade, not just because economic, because they're already going to be helped by China anyways, they're going to have this kind of economy in China, but they can also keep up with their education, their healthcare, their technology, their politics, exactly because they're going to be helped by US, right? This is also beneficial to US in ways that they're able to compete with China, for example, they're we're able to like take check and balance with China, but also this beneficial for this kind of East Asia country. The likelihood on our side is we have better mechanism on diplomatic. Exactly because there are advanced application that is happening and coming from USA. There's like international organization on education and healthcare and facilities. We're in OO because one, we prove to you that the proposal under government is risky and unlikely to be executed effectively. There are 5 reasons, like Stanley told you, exactly because, for example, there are things that comparative when you do the approach in the diplomatic way, in the way that US is already good at, we prove to you that it's more likely to happen. Second, we already prove to you the comparatively diplomatic ties is a win-win deals for both sides, but the degree of impact and livelihood, we already win, right? The way here's one, economic is most likely to get affected by China, is a waste of product, and so you can't make the benefit because we told you the only way to fix the problem can only be through diplomatic guys, very proud to oppose.
Thank you, Delo, for that speech. And just a reminder for everyone, the time limit of speaking is 7 minutes and 20 seconds, beyond which the things that is stated will not be counted by the judge. Okay, to open the case of closing government, I call upon member of government. Here.
All right. And I want to go.
Yes, you are.
All right. Okay. I need time for setting up my timers. My gender pronunciation is he or him. Your preference to chat. Don't unmute yourself. I will start my speech in 3. Ladies and gentlemen, we think that none of the themes that are able to picturize what kind of trade arguments that they want talking about. OG never characterize what kind of trade arguments that they want to build in for US and also to East Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, we think that the trade arguments would be like you want to create an agreement regarding the import and export, whether or not the East Asia have some communities that it is necessary for US to have. For example, we are able to minimize the tax in terms of trading. For example, we are able to decrease the tax in order to ease the trading each other, and exactly this is the benefits that have for US and also that is country, ladies and gentlemen. But second of all, what kind of building diplomatic types and also soft power that we are talking about? We think that the characterization that did by OO is only limited by we are only giving education, sharing knowledge, and also building facilities in each country. We don't think the diplomatic ties is only simple like that, because we think it is more than that. That is to say that US are able to do a diplomacy or even negotiations to conflicted countries, for example, to Hong Kong, on how you are able to intervene your problems, understand more the problems, and exactly proliferate the democracy of Hong Kong that currently being oppressed by China. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why our identity from CG is that we will prove to you why under OO or even under oppositions, it will be harmful for US reputations the moment they are able to create the moment they are able to create a diplomacy ties with East Asia. But before that, let's characterize OG and also OO. We think that OG loses this debate because first they never tell the harms, ladies and gentlemen, because they only say that it will be hard for US to do diplomacy talks because they have different ideology and so on and so forth, but never characterize what is the harms of diplomacy talks. This is why under our talks we will prove the harms, that is to say that US reputation will be hampered. But second of all, we think that the argument of OG is jumpy. Then there is no likelihood on process on how they're able to create stable economy. And lastly, they never characterize the East country. They only assume that the East country is only China because China is profile. Then we are questioning, does OG want to define trade agreement with China or not, right? Because regardless, we think that there is no likelihood at all. But second of all, let's talk about OO. We think that the argument that major come from OO is that they say that the picturization of diplomacy ties will be give education, healthcare, and so on and so forth. We think that sharing knowledge and such is not counted because we are questioning does it is the interest of US, ladies and gentlemen. We characterize that the interest of US currently is pragmatism. They want to build up their economy, ladies and gentlemen. They want to create a capitalist economy and so on and so forth, meaning that the US pragmatism relies on whether or not the East Asia countries is beneficial for them or not, right? Meanwhile, the characterization given by OO is that, the East Asia is vulnerable stakeholder, they lack of education, or even they have propaganda from China, for example. Then the question will be, does it fulfill the pragmatism of US, meaning that it not be counted, because since the US is not having a pragmatism, it's less likely for US to invest more to East Asia country, giving them education to defend propaganda and so on and so forth. But second of all, we will rebut this. Exactly those kind of things will be harmful, because exactly the moment US give education more, like to defend the propaganda from China, it will increase the oppression from China. China will more impose their propaganda to East country, to Hong Kong and Taiwan, in order to counterbalance the power or even the education given by US. Exactly, this is the world that we don't want to, because that will create an unnecessary war in terms of education and such, meaning that it is harmful for OO. But second of all, we think that OO have a big burden. They want to increase or even they want to counterbalance the power of China. We're questioning, does it likely for US? Because it create a lot of externalities during your economy, for example, on your political power. Meanwhile, the CG burden is not that big, because under Australia, at least we are able to create economic benefits for US, and at least we are able to create economic benefits for those East country, right? But lastly, we think that they say that US will less likely to compete with East country and such, because under 5 reasons, we think that it is not true, because US currently have their own allies and also their own market in Europe, for example, meaning that US also have their power to counterbalance the power of China. So let's go into my extensions. Why then? Before that,
Yeah, we gave you 5 reasons why when you focus on economy, you will still lose against China. You give us some more why it won't happen on your side of the house.
Under our side of the house, we don't want to counter China, ladies and gentlemen. What we want to increase the economic benefits of US. Under our side of the house, we will create trade agreements that not necessarily aims to counter China, but it aims to add more benefits, more economic benefits of US. Extension, why building the diplomatic ties and soft power will create better reputation for US. We need to characterize who is the East country that we are talking about. We talk about the neighborhood country of China, Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, and these countries are having tensions with China, ladies and gentlemen, because China are already oppressive to them due to the fact that they want to unite with China, meaning that China will limit the democracy of them, and so on and so forth. We also talk about Southeast Asia, Vietnam and Philippines, that these countries are having tensions with China due to South China Sea. So the question will be, why then diplomatic ties will be harmful? Because the moment US do diplomatic talks, meaning that they try to deal or even they try to help the tensions or even internal problems that this country have with China, right? Meaning that what will happen is that China will be more oppressive to Hong Kong and Macau, because first, the interest of China is that they want to maintain the sovereignty of their power. They don't want Hong Kong have US as backup power for their tension, ladies and gentlemen. And secondly, they want to maintain security. They don't want their security is threatened by US existence and by diplomatic ties with this kind of country. What kind of operation that we are talking about? The operation can be many forms, like shutdown voice of Taiwan and so on and so forth. This is not in line with interest of US, because first, US interest is proliferate democracy, and more operation will not in line with the democracy. But second of all, unfortunately, US will not intervene so much, because first, the interest of US is protectionism. They want to secure their own economy and so on and so forth, because the moment they intervene, it is costly, because they need to fly in Hong Kong, for example. They need to talk with the leader of Hong Kong, for example, sharing the suffering and so on and so forth. And because the interest of protectionism is that because they are already impact of Russia and Ukraine conflict due to the ban of oil trading and impact of COVID and so on and so forth. Exactly, this is harmful for US because it will create bad reputation for internationalized, because there is no intervention from US, there is no help from US the moment these countries are already oppressed by China before, ladies and gentlemen. This is the same cases with Middle East countries like Ukraine, Russia. We are very proud to propose.
Thank you, Member of Government, for that speech. Yeah, and again, just a reminder for everyone. Time limit, 7 minutes 40 seconds. Fortunately, beyond that, will not be noted down. Member of Opposition, please. Member of Opposition, are you there?
Sorry, we got disconnected. Are we clear now?
Yep, all good.
Okay.
Also, just like to confirm, is the member of government done? Because I think we got disconnected for about 30 seconds or so.
Okay, it's done. It's done. It's your turn now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are my voice clear now?
Yes, you are.
My preference is through chat, and I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, as the closing opposition, let's see what's happened in today's debate. Why our case are more exclusive than the other teams has been brought to you, because they never really explained to you the US characteristics that they did not want to let China become a superpower. They basically talk under the utopian dreams, imagining on a high level that US and China would suddenly become friends, ignoring the US interests that never want to get China under their sights. They forgot about the long historical enemies between US and China, ladies and gentlemen. What is exactly lacking in the opening debates? They never really explain to you why is it so important for us to lean on China when there's no bonding whatsoever for the last century between China and US. There's only trade war and any other problematic ties. And that is not possible, and that is not most likely to happen in the status quo. Second, there's no mechanizations on how the diplomatic ties would suddenly create much more benefits, not just economically, but also on educations, politics, and etc. They never really explain to you on how subjective feelings could work between under human nature rather than the agreements, because trade agreement only based on conditions that the statistics or the objective aspects are beneficial for both countries. That's why it's called trade agreements in the very first place. And third, there's no saying that this motion should include China. They explain about any other countries want to run away from China's control and why we are going to provide to you. There's a way to do that. That they're not become enemies with China, but they got easier and flexible agreements with US despite of the China's and the other East Asia's counter conditions. We don't think that the urgency of focusing on trade agreements is higher than building diplomatic ties and soft power with countries in East Asia. What is our goals in today's debate? Is maximizing US interests beyond their goals for not letting China dominating East Asia, but to have the other countries, the power and relations of other neighborhood countries such as South Korea, for example, Japan, etc. We have we have to understand that trade agreement is basically a business agreement or pact that made inside irrational minds and benefits only economically for the country, but did not necessarily make sure there's a form of bonding and togetherness within both countries. This is why it's very objective and will only be conducted towards business proposal that benefits both sides, ladies and gentlemen. What is exactly are we going to talk in our main arguments in today's debate? We're going to talk about US interests on East Asia and framing China as their long historical enemies. We're going to go bold, but we're going to take the other countries in East Asia, for example, like South Korea and Japan, excluding the China, because there is historical ties between US and China that make it not possible for them to having this soft power and building diplomatic ties in a very, very deep level, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk to you about the benefits of building diplomatic ties and soft power in East Asia would bring more benefits, not just economic, but also inside their feelings that is very subjective and will be controlled by the US interests, ladies and gentlemen. And why our matter is exclusive? Because we are the only teams that exclude China, because we play on the rational and win-win solutions toward both relations, but we are the only one team that prioritize US interests and characterize US interests very well, ladies and gentlemen. First, why building diplomatic ties and soft power is very powerful rather than trade agreements. Logically, you have to conduct diplomacy and negotiations before guarantee your trade agreements or pact are made between both countries. Because, for example, these diplomatic ties and this diplomacy and also this soft power are much more fundamental, ladies and gentlemen. Trade agreements would be revoked from the business if this is happening on the government side of the house. And this has happened many times as in the past, as long as the other party intending to pay the penalty, ladies and gentlemen. For example, when the US encountered the trade war with China, US got terrified because they think that China would overpower them. So they increased the fees of importing goods from China. So that is why China is US enemies to begin with. So there is no condition whatsoever in the future that US would want to make this soft power within China. But there is a higher chance or higher possibility for US to actually take those other East Asia countries, for example, like Japan and also South Korea, that also has the same similarity and same character with China, but can be under the wings of the US interests, ladies and gentlemen. Second, we're targeting on other big East Asia countries, as I explained before, other than China. Why? Because if this succeeds, not just US would only have trade agreements with South Korea, Taiwan, etc., but they would also got these East Asia countries under their side and let China out of their wings and not intervening with US interests, ladies and gentlemen. Second, I'm going to talk about, we do understand that not just diplomacy leads to fundamentally good agreements, but it also because it includes feelings and not just objectively seen, ladies and gentlemen. Because the goal is to get this East Asia countries and on the US side. They need to first initiate as much diplomatic ties and solidarity inside of both countries. Whether it's economically beneficial or not, they would still agree at the end of the day, because they would still agree on the cooperations on the large scale. For example, about the other aspects that has been talked by the opening oppositions, but they didn't have a good mechanization and a good explaining about the human nature feelings, about the education aspect, about the health aspect. This would still be conducted in our side of the house, ladies and gentlemen, because of this human nature feelings and the togetherness and the bonding that we're going to provide to you. Because human tends to go beyond their rationality when it against something like feelings, togetherness, and bonding that benefits the smart ones that control human feelings. And we want to make the US the smart ones here, the one that controls human feelings. Because notice some other countries help other countries on war, even when it's not beneficial. It's basically make them poor and economic, because they think of the long historical togetherness are important and much more important and must be maintained towards this case, ladies and gentlemen. That's why diplomatic ties and soft power controls human feelings that are more superior than statistic or trade agreements, and we could portray US interests very well that will be getting lots of benefit from these agreements with these other East Asian countries other than China itself, because there is not any possibility that it would work. Thank you. That's why I'm proud to oppose.
Thank you, member of opposition. To close the case of government, I call upon government rep. Here. I can hear your voice, but I think it's quite muffled.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, much better.
I'm setting up my timer first. POI preference through chat, gender pronoun she or her. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Opening debate is so confusing. Yes, they throw lots of harms and benefit, but they never explain to us what's actually what's the matters from the matter that they throw in the very first place, right? Why it is so necessary for US to get more power, for example. Why it is so necessary for US to help those countries, for example. Or whether or not US is actually powerful and responsible to help those kind of small countries in the end of the day, right? But CG here will take the deal why, even if we desperately need to overclock the power of China, we will prove to you it is not exclusive only from the diplomatic ties with these other countries in East Asia. CJ believes that US powerful enough, and we do not need to imposing like soft power approach to the East Asia country, especially in economy. Understand that US have the biggest voting power in the World Bank. US voices are getting getting considered the most in the United Nations, and so on and so forth, right? Hence, those countries, in the end of the day, will be pragmatic and do favor in US to get the indirect help from the decisions that will be taken in such a World Bank, for example. Hence, we say that in the end of the day, this power or these 5 reasons that oppositions are trying to claim, basically opposition's point about the overclouding power of China is found out in the end of the day, because we do believe that US power is already big and we do not need this kind of diplomatic ties and soft power. We need to focusing on the trading in the end of the day, because understand that all countries are in a post-pandemic. They're going to be so rational. They're going to be very pragmatic. They will take the decisions about which one that is going to be much more beneficial, which is the trading in itself. I'll explain later on. Moreover than that, we believe that US is not responsible to help the vulnerable countries like Taiwan, Macau, Hong Kong, and such. Our argument about how we need help from US because like lots of graduate from top schools, experts, and etc. We think that this only relying on US interest. They never characterize the US interest in the very first place, right? Understand that US interest is protectionism. We think that it's not in line with the US interest because US currently are really protecting their economy. They don't want to make like unnecessary. Spending, for example, and so on and so forth. If these countries are really problematic with any other big countries, such as like China or even like North Korea, we think that we're still able to like talk it in the United Nations General Assembly, right? We think that it's not necessarily need US as a third party here to help these countries, especially when it is no longer becoming the US interest, right? Talking about identity, why CG over OG? OG indeed claims several things such as, it is easier for US to do trading because it's more flexible, and it is so hard for us to do diplomatic talk because East Asia countries are controlled by China. But no harm for others. My member told you on why it is much more harmful. CG provides harm such as, we will see as US intervention, or even status quo is enough. We think that it's only going to like harming these small countries in the end of the day because there will be more pressure from this China and North Korea, for example. We think that this harm is much more tangible, and this is much more important to be brought in this debate. CG apprehend OG. Moving on to my speech, talking about why opposition bench is loose in this debate. Firstly, talking about why losing government is over opening oppositions. 2 contributions left from opening oppositions. They basically try to claim on how first, like there's trading, if we choose trading, it will be outcompeted by China. Hence, we need to do other mechanism. And secondly, like there's more advanced technology by US and so on and so forth, right? Let's deal with it one by one. Firstly, talking about trading. We think that OO portrayal should not be counted in the first place because the portrayal is as if when China is there to do trading, US all of a sudden cannot do trading. Understand that even in closing government, as US we still able to do trading. We say that US is not going to be outcompeted by China in the end of the day because US and China are having a different market. If you want to like buy a cheap stuff, you go to China stuff. But if you want, but if you prefer a good quality stuff, you go to US stuff. US did with much more which relatively much more expensive stuff, right? In the end of the day, we think that this trading is not really it's not going to like really outcompeted by China, right? But before moving on, yes,
Yes, if your urgency during pandemic, what are so specials on East Asia countries rather than Southeast Asia will have more natural resources? Why when US heavily focus on it, will be able to compete with China? Our counterfactual is actually implicitly impacts to make stronger agreements.
We think that China is powerful enough why we need to outcompete China in the end of the day, right? We think that if you are talking about the natural resources whatsoever, we think that it still could be like benefiting for US in the end of the day, like we still having trading and so on and so far, which the taxes is actually going to benefit both country, right? If US want to do trading in this this East Asia country, US will like pay the taxes towards this country, which this country will also get the benefit and vice versa, right? Hence we say that there's no exclusivity from that mechanism. But secondly, talking about more advanced in technology whatsoever, like OO claim, we are questioning why it is important and it is exclusive. Because even if we are like really needed on advanced technology and so on and so far, we think that it still could be happen by trading of technology, for example, or even the investment of certain MNC that using a technology, for example, which is much more better under our side of the house, because there will be like focus on certain things that they want to invest. They will like their focus will be specified in the end of the day. Hence we say that even within that through our mechanism, it is going to be much better CG upper hand OO. But secondly, talking about why CG upper hand CO contributions is basically only talking about why we will going to ask to China, we will having a diplomacy talk with South Korea and Japan and so on and so forth, right? Let's deal with this. Firstly, within that, this diplomacy talk in current status quo is exists and run well, right? We question why then we need to heavily focus on this in the first place. Within that, all countries are recovering from post-pandemic, all will focus on the economic benefit. If it's only could this economic benefit only could be happen by imposing and focusing more on trading, because it will like it will create like taxes for its countries in the end of the day, right? Especially when closing oppositions try to claim about how diplomacy using humans feeling and so on and so forth, we're questioning why it is going to be the interest of those countries in status quo, right? Those countries are pragmatic. They see lots of their society are suffer on the ground. What they will think about is on how they create economic benefit, which is through this trading in the end of the day, right? Within that, they need to prove to you on why the benefit, this benefit, the economic benefit could not be applied through trading. That's why we're more than proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Government for that speech. To close the case of op and the debate as a whole, I call upon opposition whip. Here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'm just setting up my timer. Hold on. Okay, am I audible and visible?
Yes.
Okay, POI preference is through chat. And I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. As the famous quote that was displayed on the opening of Crazy Rich Asian that was said by Napoleon Bonaparte, let China sleep, for when she wakes, she will shake the world. Ladies and gentlemen, China has been dominating the world, and this threatens the Western world, including the US, deeply. This is something that every bench in today's debate needs to understand, is that the US has been viewing China in the last decade as their enemy, because the US, as a main power of the West, fears China's domination that has been growing rapidly since their increase of industrialization and military equipment. Now, we believe that CO deserves to win this debate because CO gives to you the characterizations of US interests specifically, and why only through increasing diplomatic ties and soft power will US interests be a whole lot better. But that being said, I would like to invite you all in. Let's take a review of what has currently happened in today's debate, starting up with the case from OG. We believe that OG failed to do a lot of things here, because their main argument was only talking about improving the internal development of the US, and that the US won't work with China, and etc. And we will actually prove how by improving trade agreements with East Asia, it'll actually not improve the internal development of the US. And we'll explain that later on. And we believe that they don't have any mechanization at all in many of their arguments, and many of them are actually one-liner arguments and should not be analyzed thoroughly. Now, let's actually look at OO's case. We acknowledge the contribution that OO has bring into today's debate, but we believe that OO's contribution still lacks in many aspects, and we would like to fill those gaps. Now, starting off at what the second speaker of OO talked about, in which she talked about how the vulnerable actors, for example, Taiwan, and she talked about how the US will acknowledge Taiwan's sovereignty, and so this will help Taiwan. But here's the thing that we need to understand. That is not the main reason why the US would want to help Taiwan in the first place. The reason why the US would want to increase diplomatic ties and soft power with Taiwan is to intimidate China, so that once China knows that the Taiwan has close ties with the US, this will make China would not dare to forcefully take back Taiwan, because they know that the US will retaliate, which is why the US has ships monitoring Taiwan. And so this is the form of soft power that we're talking about. By the US sending military ships and surrounding Taiwan, this intimidates China. And so this is the type of soft power that we're talking about. And because this counterbalances what China wants. And so
Hello.
that being said, we believe
Opposition
that
whip.
the main in this debate,
Opposition whip.
yes.
Yeah. I'm really sorry. You were quiet, choppy there. I think you have a connection problem. The last thing you said was United States wants to intimidate China. I stopped the timer at 3 minutes sharp.
Oh, okay. I'll just repeat my speech in 3, 2, 1. And so going back to where I picked up. And so we believe that the US would want to intimidate China because the US would not want China's power to grow. The US does not want China taking back Taiwan. Okay, now before that, no thank you. Let's talk about CG's contribution in today's debate. And so the first speaker of CG rebut OO and talked about OO's proposal will make China increase their propaganda and their influence. But here's the thing, this is the thing that CG needs to understand into this debate. Without the US doing this type of diplomatic ties and soft power, China has already been rapidly increasing their propaganda, and that's the reason why in Taiwan and in Hong Kong there's been a rise of pro-China parties, and so that is why this. In accordance to US interests, that is why the US would actually want to increase diplomatic ties and soft power in order to counterbalance China's influence in the region, because the US strongly does not want China having more power, does not want to have influence over, the US does not want China to have influence over Taiwan and Hong Kong. And so when CG asked about the pragmatism of the US, we have answered this to you, and because we characterize explicitly this of why US would want to do this and the interest of the US. Because when CG talked about US interest is to actually proliferate democracy, we believe that is not their main agenda. Their main agenda is to counterbalance China's economic and political power. Now, talking about the second speaker of CG, now they talked about how the US power is already big, and but here's the thing, we believe that they don't actually know what's going on, because like I've said before, in Taiwan there's been a rise of pro-China parties, and in Hong Kong as well. And they talked about how those problematic countries should just go to the UN. My dear, that is not how the UN works. This is internal problems within China and Taiwan, China and Hong Kong, and it's not a solid enough case for them to apply to the UN or to the international court. Now, talking about why CO's case is super important in today's debate. Now, we've characterized to you that the US has a very strong interest to not let China dominate the world. And so this strongly separates us from OO, because in the last decade, China has been growing their domination. This strongly threatens the US and the West. And so by the US building diplomatic ties and soft power with countries in East Asia, such as South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Mongolia, and etc., this will ensure that East Asian countries will not sway into China's influence, because China strongly wants to dominate East Asia by having those countries into siding with China. And so this is what the US doesn't want, which is why the US and China do proxy wars in the Middle East by, for example, US supporting Saudi Arabia and China supporting Iran, because they don't want each other to win. And so, but that being said, we've talked about the importance of the diplomatic ties and soft power, but we also want to talk about the harms of increasing trade agreements. We believe, like my first speaker has talked about, trade agreements can be revised or revoked, like when the US finally increased tariffs on China when they started the trade war. But here's the thing also, we believe that by increasing trade agreements with East Asia, this will be harmful for US economy, because things in East Asia are more cheaper and because of cheap labor and etc. And so just as it was voiced out by President Trump, this made US consumers and US businesses to buy from China, to move their production house to China. And so this caused mass bankruptcy towards factories and manufacturing companies all over the US, increasing unemployment. And this was harmful. This, just take a look of the Rust Belt, which is a region in the Midwest in the US that faced many unemployment because their jobs moved away to China. And so we've proved to you why soft power diplomatic is important and why trade agreements for the US and East Asia is very harmful. That is why overall, we're very proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Opposition Whip, for that speech, and thank you everyone for what is a very, very fine debate. You guys can now go virtual cross floors and virtual shake hands and leave this breakout room while awaiting the result of the Octofinals. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Muti, are we going to be provided a breakout room to deliberate, or should we just do it here? Because it's still streaming at the moment. Still streaming, right? Panels, kalau udah ada hasil di personal chat tuh ya, kayak because it's still streaming moment.